The moment I saw her, I knew. I had stepped outside the bar for some air, my beer half finished on the counter. The night was thick with the scent of city smoke and spilled liquor. That's when I saw her, Emily, draped over a man I instantly recognized. Jake Carter. Star striker. Womanizer. The kind of guy who didn't care whose wife he was screwing, as long as she was willing. Emily was more than willing. She tossed her blonde curls over her shoulder, laughed that fake, high-pitched laugh she only used when she was trying to impress someone, and ran her manicured fingers over his chest like she'd done to me 1,000 times before. Rage surged through my veins. My knuckles clenched. The sound of my heartbeat roared in my ears. She turned, and our eyes met. A moment of hesitation flickered in her expression, but it was gone just as fast, replaced by something worse. A smirk. I took a step forward, fists shaking. She did the unthinkable. She grabbed Jake's hand and practically purred, "I just have to ride this stallion tonight." My body turned to stone. My mind screamed at me to do something, say something, stop her. Jake looked at me then, as if I was nothing, just some pathetic joke. Like he had already won. That's when I ran. I shoved past a group of people on the sidewalk and bolted toward them. Emily. If you get in that car, I swear to God, I'll deal with him first. And then I'll come for you. She didn't stop. She didn't even flinch. She just picked up her pace, practically running in her heels. And before she ducked into that sleek black car, she turned back, waved, and said, "Sorry, honey. You can find yourself a hottie too. Bye." The car door slammed shut. The engine roared to life. And just like that, my wife was gone. Jake's car peeled out of the parking lot, leaving behind the stench of burnt rubber and betrayal. I stood frozen on the sidewalk, fists clenched, heart hammering, my entire life crumbling in real time. I kept my promise. And when I struck back, I played for high stakes. I stood there, watching the red taillights disappear into the night, my mind spinning so fast I thought I might black out. A couple of people from the bar had come outside, whispering, stealing glances at me like I was some pathetic loser. Maybe I was. But not for long. My breath came hard and fast. My hands trembled, but not from sadness. No. This wasn't heartbreak. This wasn't grief. This was something far, far worse. A rage so pure it burned cold. I turned on my heel and stormed back inside the bar. My untouched beer sat there, mocking me. I grabbed it, chugged the rest in one go, and slammed it back on the counter. Another, I growled at the bartender. He hesitated but poured it. As he slid it across, he muttered, "Tough night, man." I laughed, a dry, humorless sound. Oh, you could say that. Every muscle in my body screamed at me to do something. Track her phone. Call her. Get in my car and chase them down. But no. No, that's what a desperate man would do. And I was no longer desperate. I was planning. Jake Carter thought he won tonight. He thought he could take my wife, rub it in my face, and drive off into the night like some goddamn king. And Emily had the audacity to look me in the eye and throw away 10 years like it was nothing. Like I was nothing. Fine. Let's see who has the last laugh. I pulled out my phone and made a call. "Hey, Tyler," I said when my friend picked up. "Need a favor?" Tyler was quiet for a second, then let out a low whistle. "You sound like a man about to do something real stupid." "Not stupid," I corrected. "Necessary." The line went silent for a moment. Then, "Where are you?" "Downtown. Just watched my wife get into Jake Carter's car." "Holy s******, Tyler muttered. "Dude. Yeah." I took a deep breath. Meet me at my place in an hour. I hung up. Tyler was the kind of guy who didn't ask questions. He knew me well enough to understand that when I said I was handling something, I meant it. I left the bar, my body moving on autopilot. I wasn't drunk, but I felt like I was floating. A strange sense of clarity washed over me. I drove home in silence. The house was dark when I got there. Empty. Cold. I walked into our bedroom, took one look at the neatly made bed, and nearly punched the wall. Instead, I turned to the closet. Emily's clothes, her stupid designer bags, the perfume she doused herself in every morning. I grabbed one of her dresses off the hanger and stared at it. She'd worn this on our anniversary. That same anniversary she had probably already forgotten. I laughed. Actually laughed. Then I ripped it in half. The sound was satisfying. Like tearing away the last piece of whatever illusion I'd been living under. I heard Tyler's car pull up outside. A moment later, he let himself in. "All right," he said, stepping into the living room. "How bad is it?" I turned to face him, my expression hard. "It's gonna get worse." Tyler sighed and ran a hand through his hair. "All right, man. I'm here. What's the plan?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I walked to the kitchen, grabbed 2 beers from the fridge, tossed him one. "She thinks she can humiliate me," I said, twisting the cap off mine. "Thinks she can a famous soccer player and walk away laughing." Tyler leaned against the counter, watching me carefully. "And?" "She's wrong." The next morning, Emily still hadn't come home. No text. No call. Nothing. I wasn't surprised. In fact, I was counting on it. Because while she was busy rolling around in silk sheets, I was busy setting the stage. I called a lawyer. I called the bank. Froze the joint accounts before she could touch a dime. Then I made another call. One to the press. See, Jake Carter had a reputation. The kind that sponsors didn't like. The kind that could ruin careers. And my wife? She was about to become very, very famous. By the time Emily finally waltzed back in, looking smug and wearing a different dress than the one she left in, the storm had already started. She barely made it 3 steps inside before I tossed my phone at her. Her eyes flicked to the screen. A headline. Big. Bold. Brutal. Jake Carter caught in scandal with married woman, exclusive photos inside. Her face drained of color. "What?" "I told you," I said, leaning back against the couch. "If you got in that car, I'd deal with him first." She gawked at me, mouth opening and closing like a fish. "And now," I added, standing up, "it's your turn." Emily's face twisted, her confidence crumbling right in front of me. She gripped my phone like it might change the words on the screen. What did you do?" she hissed, her voice no longer dripping with arrogance. I smirked. "Oh, I just made sure the world knew exactly what you are." She threw the phone at me, missing by a mile. It clattered to the floor. "You psycho," she shrieked. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "Yeah," I said, stepping closer, watching her back up like a trapped animal. "I made sure Jake Carter's sponsors see what kind of family man he really is. Do you know how much money that guy was set to make next season? Do you know how fast they drop guys with scandals like this?" Her eyes widened, the realization sinking in. "You're lying," she spat. But her voice wavered. I pulled out my second phone and opened the news. "Really?" "Because ESPN picked it up." I tossed the phone onto the coffee table, the article flashing across the screen. "And TMZ. Oh, and his club already made a statement. You want to read it?" She didn't move. "They're considering a suspension," I continued, my voice dripping with mock sympathy. Apparently, public conduct unbecoming of a professional athlete is a big no-no. Who knew? Emily's hands shook. She whirled away from me, gripping her head. You ruined everything. I laughed. A real, deep, satisfied laugh. Oh, sweetheart, I said, walking around the couch, forcing her to look at me. I ruined everything? You got in his car. You let him touch you. You laughed in my face. My voice dropped, cold and sharp. You threw away our marriage like it was a cheap souvenir. She turned on me, eyes wild. You don't get to play the victim. You're just a bitter, pathetic little man who couldn't keep up. You weren't enough for me, and you damn well know it. And there it was. The truth. I nodded slowly, taking in every venomous word. Good, I said. I wanted to hear you say it. Just once. Her lip curled. Oh, please. What did you think? That I'd cry? Beg for forgiveness? She rolled her eyes and crossed her arms. You really think I care if Jake gets dropped from his stupid contract? He's rich. He'll be fine. You sure? I cocked my head. Because from what I hear, his wife isn't taking it so well. The blood drained from Emily's face. I grinned. Oh, you didn't know? I grabbed my phone and pulled up another article. Apparently, she was blindsided. Just like me. And unlike you, she actually has dignity. Guess what she did this morning? Emily just stared. She filed for divorce. I let that hang between us. Half of everything. And let's not forget the sponsors leaving him high and dry. That man you thought was your golden ticket? I let out a whistle. Yeah. He's about to lose millions. Emily's mouth opened, then closed. She stepped back, shaking her head. No. No, he told me. I stepped in close enough to see the fear in her eyes. What did he tell you? That you were special? That he'd take care of you? I laughed softly. Yeah. That's cute. She swallowed hard. You don't know anything. Oh, but I do. I leaned in, my voice barely above a whisper. Because when his wife left him, guess who he called first? Emily blinked rapidly, her breathing uneven. Not you, I said, relishing the way her face fell. No, he was too busy begging her not to take his money. I pulled back, letting her digest that. Pack your stuff, I said, my voice flat. You're done here. Her head snapped up. Excuse me? You heard me. I walked past her, heading to the bedroom. I had the locks changed this morning. You've got 10 minutes to get your things and leave, or I'll throw them on the lawn. She followed me, her heels clicking against the hardwood. You can't just kick me out. Actually, I can, I said, pulling open the closet and grabbing a suitcase. I tossed it onto the bed. And I am. She hesitated, her hands clenching into fists. This isn't over, she whispered. I zipped open the suitcase and started throwing in her clothes. It is for me. She stared at me for a long moment. Then, without another word, she grabbed the suitcase and stormed out. The front door slammed so hard the walls shook. I stood there for a moment, listening to the silence she left behind. Then I exhaled. For the first time in months, I felt free. The silence in the house was deafening. It was a strange kind of quiet, the kind that only comes after a storm rips through and leaves destruction in its wake. I should have felt relief. Should have felt victorious. But instead, I just felt hollow. I walked over to the window and pulled back the curtain. Emily was still outside, standing next to her suitcase, furiously typing on her phone. Probably calling Jake. Probably begging him to pick her up. I smirked. Good luck with that. The thing about men like Jake Carter? They don't do damage control for women like Emily. She was fun until she wasn't. Until she became a liability. And now? Now she was just another problem he had to deal with. She finally looked up, scanning the street, waiting for someone to save her. But no one was coming. I let the curtain fall back into place and turned away. She wasn't my problem anymore. I walked through the house, passing the memories we built together, now nothing more than set decorations in a play that had ended. The framed wedding photo on the wall? Gone. The little notes she used to leave me on the fridge? Crumpled and trashed. I grabbed a bottle of whiskey and poured myself a glass. Sat on the couch. Took a sip. And then the phone rang. I glanced at the screen. Unknown number. I debated letting it go to voicemail, but something told me to pick up. Yeah. Silence on the other end. And then. You're a dead man. The voice was low, dripping with rage. I didn't need to ask who it was. Jake, I said, swirling the whiskey in my glass. Took you long enough. You think this is funny? He growled. You think you can pull this S*** and just walk away? I chuckled, leaning back. What's wrong, superstar? Sponsors not too happy with the headlines? The sound of something slamming echoed through the phone. You don't know who the F*** you're messing with. I know exactly who I'm messing with, I said. A washed-up soccer player who thought he could screw another man's wife and get away with it. I took another sip, letting the silence stretch. How's your wife, by the way? Oh, wait. You don't have one anymore. His breathing turned ragged. I swear to God, You'll what? I cut him off. Come find me? Teach me a lesson? I leaned forward, my voice calm. Jake. Buddy. You're not the predator here. You're the prey. Silence. Then the line went dead. I smiled and tossed the phone onto the coffee table. Let him come. I finished my drink, then stood up and stretched. Walked to the bathroom. Splashed some cold water on my face. When I looked in the mirror, I almost didn't recognize myself. Not because I looked broken. But because I didn't. The man staring back at me wasn't the same man who had watched his wife climb into another man's car. He wasn't the fool who had spent years believing in something that never really existed. No. This man was something else. Something dangerous. A knock at the door. I dried my hands and walked back into the living room. Another knock, louder this time. I glanced at the clock. Midnight. Too late for friendly visits. I walked over and checked the peephole. Jake. Grinning. I let out a slow breath. Then I unlocked the door and pulled it open. We stood there, staring at each other. He looked like hell. Disheveled, shirt wrinkled, a bruise forming under his left eye. Guess his soon-to-be ex-wife didn't take the news well. Nice place, he said, stepping forward. Mind if I come in? I didn't move. I mind a lot of things. He smirked. You think you're real smart, don't you? I crossed my arms. Smarter than you. His jaw tightened. Then, without warning, he swung. I dodged. Barely. His fist skimmed my jaw, and I stumbled back. But I recovered fast. I hit him first. A solid punch to the ribs. Then another. He grunted, doubling over, but he wasn't done. He lunged, tackling me to the ground. We crashed into the coffee table, sending my glass of whiskey flying. The bottle shattered against the floor. He got in a punch. Then another. Pain exploded in my cheek, but I gritted my teeth and shoved him off. He stumbled back, giving me just enough time to grab the nearest thing, an empty whiskey bottle, and smash it over his head. He went down hard. Panting, I stood over him, watching as he groaned and rolled onto his side. Blood dripped from a cut above his eye. I wiped my mouth and exhaled. Then I crouched down, grabbed a fistful of his shirt, and yanked him close. This, I said, my voice deadly calm, was me being nice. He blinked up at me, dazed. You ever come near me again, I whispered, and I won't be. I let go, shoving him back against the floor. He lay there, breathing hard. I stood up, adjusted my shirt, and stepped over him. Opened the door. Get out. He didn't move at first. But eventually, he pushed himself up, swayed slightly, then stumbled toward the door. He stopped in the doorway, turning to look at me one last time. This isn't over, he muttered. I smiled. It is for me. Then I slammed the door in his face. The silence returned. But this time, it felt right. I stood there for a long moment, heart still pounding, adrenaline buzzing under my skin. The room smelled like whiskey and blood. My blood. His blood. Didn't matter. I walked to the bathroom, turned on the light, and looked at myself in the mirror. My lip was split, my jaw already bruising. I pressed a hand to my ribs, tender. Not broken. I smirked. Jake got off easy. I wiped the blood off my face, rinsed my hands, and grabbed a towel. The house was quiet again, but it didn't feel empty. It felt settled. Like it had been holding its breath for months, waiting for something to break. And now it had. I walked back into the living room, stepping over broken glass. The mess could wait. Right now, I just needed air. I grabbed my jacket, opened the door, and stepped outside. The night was cool, the sky a deep shade of black. Across the street, a car idled. Dark windows. No plates. Jake? No. He wouldn't be that stupid. Still, I didn't like it. I stood there for a moment, hands in my pockets, staring at the car. It didn't move. I smirked. Let them watch. I turned and started walking. Didn't know where I was going, didn't care. I just needed to move, to feel the pavement under my feet, to remind myself that I was still here, still standing. Emily was gone. Jake was handled. But something still felt unfinished. I walked 3 blocks before I heard footsteps behind me. Slow. Deliberate. I didn't turn around. I crossed the street. So did they. I reached into my pocket, fingers closing around my keys. My heart rate didn't change, but my body tensed. All right. Let's see how this plays out. I turned down an alley, stepping into the shadows. The footsteps followed. Then they stopped. Silence. Then. You made a big mistake. I smiled. Low voice. Measured tone. Not Jake. Someone else. I turned around, slowly. 2 men. Suits. Clean cut. Not thugs. Not street guys. Professionals. Interesting. One of them stepped forward. You shouldn't have messed with Carter. I tilted my head. You work for him? A pause. Then, not exactly. I nodded. Right. So this is the part where you threaten me, rough me up a little, scare me into backing off? No answer. Just stares. I sighed. Okay, let's get this over with. The first guy moved fast. Real fast. But I was ready. I sidestepped his punch, grabbed his wrist, and twisted. Hard. He yelped, but before I could finish him, the second guy swung. Pain exploded in my ribs. I stumbled back, gritting my teeth. All right. They weren't amateurs. Fine. I could work with that. I launched forward, driving my elbow into the second guy's face. He staggered, blood spraying from his nose. The first guy recovered, lunging at me again. I caught him with an uppercut, sent him crashing against the wall. 2 on 1. Not great odds. But I'd had worse. The second guy wiped blood from his nose and pulled something from his jacket. A gun. I froze. He smirked. That's enough fun for tonight. The first guy got up, rubbing his jaw. Boss wants to talk. Boss. I exhaled, rolling my shoulders. That right? The second guy motioned with the gun. Get in the car. I didn't move. A tense beat passed. Then I grinned. No. The guy blinked. Excuse me? I took a step forward. You want me? Shoot me. I spread my arms. Go ahead. Make some noise. Bring the cops. Let's see how your boss feels about that kind of attention. Silence. They weren't expecting that. The first guy glanced at the second. The second hesitated. Then. A voice from the shadows. That won't be necessary. I turned. A man stepped out of the darkness. Older. Expensive suit. Slicked back hair. Eyes that had seen too much. He smiled. You've been making waves. I crossed my arms. You must be the boss. He chuckled. Call me Vincent. I said nothing. Just waited. Vincent took a step closer. I have a proposition for you. I raised an eyebrow. That so? He nodded. You see, Carter's situation has caused some problems. Problems I need solved. I smirked. And let me guess, you think I'm the guy to solve them? Vincent smiled. Smart man. I let that sit for a moment. Then I laughed. Long, slow. And then I stepped closer, looking him dead in the eye. Not interested. Vincent's smile didn't falter. I think you should reconsider. I leaned in, voice low. I think you should off. The air went heavy. His men tensed. But Vincent? He just chuckled. I like you. Then he turned to leave. We'll be in touch. He disappeared into the night. His men followed. I stood there, watching them go. Then I exhaled. Emily. Jake. And now this. Things were just getting started. The city was quiet. Too quiet. I stood under the flickering streetlight, watching Vincent's car disappear into the night. My ribs ached, my lip was swollen, and my fists still stung from the fight. But none of that mattered. Not now. Because I had just turned down an offer from a man who didn't take no for an answer. And that meant one thing. This wasn't over. I walked back to my house, mind racing. The second I stepped inside, I locked the door, grabbed another drink, and sat down. Staring at the wall. Jake was finished. His little fling with Emily had cost him more than he ever expected. He had no wife, no reputation, and no protection. But Vincent? That was a different story. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was bigger. I pulled out my phone. Scrolled through my contacts. Found the name I was looking for. Tyler Briggs. Ex-cop. Dirty as they come. But reliable when it mattered. I hit call. A groggy voice answered. Who the hell? I need a favor, I said. Silence. Then a sigh. Jesus, man. It's been years. Yeah, I said. And I wouldn't be calling if this wasn't serious. Another pause. Then, all right. Talk. I exhaled. I need everything you can dig up on Vincent Romano. Briggs whistled. That's a big name. I know. You know he's got half the city in his pocket, right? Yeah, I said. That's why I need you. A long pause. Then, this about Emily? I laughed. Short. Bitter. Not anymore. Another silence. Then Briggs sighed. Fine. I'll see what I can do. But if I go down for this. You won't, I said. Just get me what I need. I hung up. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Emily. Jake. Vincent. It all started with a cheating wife. With a simple betrayal. But now? Now I was in something much bigger. And I had a choice. Walk away. Forget it. Start over. Or keep going. Burn it all down. I already knew what I was going to do. I reached for the bottle, poured another drink, and smiled. This wasn't the end. Not yet.